Welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Tonight's guest covers horse racing. He covers the Kentucky Derby and all the races on a numerous number of sites, and that is Jeffrey Byrnes. How are you doing on this fine evening?
I'm doing good, Madison. It's good to talk to you again. Getting ready for the first Saturday in May.
Yes, getting ready for the first Saturday of May, which is the Kentucky Derby almost every year. Obviously, last year it wasn't. This year it's back to normal, back to May, just as we were saying. We do this every year, obviously. We did it the past 3 or 4 years, and it's become a tradition on the podcast. So you know the drill. We go from 1 to 20, talk about the horses, and at the end we give out our picks, all right?
All right, let's do it.
All right, number 1, Known Agenda. He is 6-1. A couple years old. A chestnut colored horse. St. Elias Stables. The owners. Tell us a little bit more about Known Agenda.
Well, I have Known Agenda a lot. It just really stinks that he drew the one post, especially in a field of 20 where speed's to the outside and he's on the inside. He's not really known for his speed. But good news for him is that horses 2 through 6, who we'll get to in a little bit, are known as late closers. So that could be the good news for him. Also, it may be good news that the gate is slightly different than it was a couple years ago, where there's no gap, so the horses could possibly veer into him as he's coming out of the gate. So that might be good news. Still not that great that he drew the one post, but if he's going to win this race, he's going to have to come with talent. Obviously, he has the right jockey aboard, Irad Ortiz, trainer Ty Pletcher. He's won a couple Kentucky Derbies with Super Saver in 2010, Always Dreaming in 2017. This is a colt who it took a little while for him to get going. His 2-year-old season, he broke his mania at the mile and an eighth distance at Aqueduct back in November of last year. His stakes debut didn't quite go so well in the Remsen. Then an equally puzzling race in the Sam F. Davis where he finished 5th after a really strange trip in which he broke last. It looked like he was almost going to be pulled up around the turn and then just came flying late. After the race, trainer Ty Pletcher decided to change things up with him and decided to put blinkers on and make the jockey switch to Irad Ortiz. And since then, he's basically become a different horse, winning an allowance race impressively, then winning the Grade 1 Florida Derby in very impressive fashion, and earning his way into the starting gate. So he's going to have to get a good pace in front of him, and in order for him to win, he's going to have to overcome that one post. He certainly has the talent to do it, but the one post has not won the Derby since 1986, and he's going to be up for it this time.
Yeah, I like Known Agenda. I think that's a good horse. The 2 horses, Like the King, it's one of the long shots on the board, 50-1. Wesley A. Ward's the trainer. Tell us a little bit about Like the King.
Like the King, yes, 50-1 long shot, and probably deservedly so. Even though this will be his 7th lifetime start in the Kentucky Derby, he's never won on a dirt track before. All of his wins have come either on turf or synthetic. His last win was his Greatest Stakes debut in the Jeff Ruby Stakes at Turfway Park. Was brand new points race to the Derby this year with 100 points, and he won that race to get into the field. The 2 posts certainly, I don't think will affect him too much because he's a late closer, and certainly with a pace he could be closing late. But the fact that he's never run one on dirt before, plus the fact that the field he really beaten at Jeff Ruby wasn't all that great. It's a huge step up in competition for him. So at 50-1, it's going to be quite a shocker if he were to win the Derby this time. The good part about story for him is that his trainer Wesley Ward, he's been in the business now for over 30 years, and he's going to get his very first Derby runner. So it's good for him. It's a nice story, but it will be a shocker if Like the King wins on Saturday.
Absolutely agree with you there. The number 3 horse is Brooklyn Strong, another long shot at 50-1. The trainer of this horse is Velasquez Daniel. Tell us a little bit about Brooklyn Strong.
Brooklyn Strong, this is a bit of a quirky horse. He actually did not get into the field until about Monday afternoon, so just about yesterday. He had to have a couple defections in order to get in, and then he was able to get in with a couple of defections. The connections weren't originally going to send him to the Derby, but it wasn't until a strong 5-furlhough workout yesterday in which the connections all but confirmed him for the race. This will be Daniel Velasquez's first Kentucky Derby starter. Excuse me. But this is a New York bred who was only run once this year, and it came in a 5th place finish in the Wood Memorial. He got a bit of a trouble trip that day. But I think with the 3 posts, he should be able to sit a good grip from the inside. But also like him, I believe he's also 50-1 on the morning line. Yes, he is. But he's going to have to work out a good trip. Umberto Rispoli making his Kentucky Derby debut as a jockey. Once again, just like the King, it's going to be a tall task for him.
Yep, and then the next one's a tall tasker too at 50-1. Keep Me in Mind is the horse's name in the 4-hole. The trainer is Robertino Diordo. Tell us a little bit about Keep Me in Mind.
Keep Me in Mind, trained by Robertino Diodoro. This horse is 1 for 6. This will be a 7th career start coming in. He actually broke his maiden in the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club, where he faced a couple of horses who were also running in the Derby from that field. He had a good 2-year-old for him. Despite not winning until November 28th of last year, he was actually Grade 1 placed at the Breeders' Futurity behind Essential Quality, who we'll get to a little later on. And then he was 3rd, only being the length behind Essential Quality in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So even though he wasn't winning, he was still running pretty well as a 2-year-old. As a 3-year-old, he went a bit off form. He did not run well in the Rebel Stakes and the Toyota Bluegrass. But just like with Brooklyn Strong, he had to get some defections from the field to get in. He was able to get in, and he posted a very strong 4-furlong workout just a few days ago. He went 46 flat, which is very, very fast over the Churchill Downs surface. He was confirmed as to be a starter. Both jockey David Cohen and Robertino Diodoro make their Kentucky Derby debuts. But unless he gets back to his 2-year-old form, just like the King and Brooklyn Strong, it's going to be a very tall task for him.
Yep. All right, next up is Sainthood, also a 50-1 long shot on the board. The trainer is Todd Pletcher, who's one of the better trainers, I think. Tell us a little bit about Sainthood.
Yes, Todd Pletcher certainly is one of the top trainers in the country. He's, like I say, with no agenda. This is the 2nd of 4 for Todd Pletcher in this field. Sainthood did not make his career debut until January 9th of this year, which he was a good 2nd in the maiden race. Then the connections took him to the fairgrounds on Risen Star Day, which was a prep for the Louisiana Derby. He won a main special weight over there in a driving finish. And then he was 2nd behind Like the King in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. But the difference between Sainthood and Like the King, even though the race originally I don't think came up all that strong, is that Sainthood has experience over the dirt. He has been working out extremely well, and he has faced some, I would say, tougher competition in the past. His run in the Jeff Ruby Stakes was pretty borderline, okay, but at the end of the day, he didn't exactly get the best of trips from the outside post. He was making a run to the inside, but got shut off turning for home, and then just missed by 3/4 of a length to get to Like the King. Now, he gives jockey Corey Lannery, who's a veteran Kentucky Derby rider. Todd Pletcher certainly knows how to get long shots in the Kentucky Derby and other races, etc. So if Sainthood could get the right pace, I think he'll definitely be coming late for a finish. He's 50-1 on the morning line, but I won't be surprised if he goes a little bit lower than that. I don't know necessarily if he could win, but I think he definitely could be in play for your exotics.
Yeah, a little bit of a shorter odds for this one. Obesos is the number 6 horse at 20-1, trained by Gregory Foley. Tell us a little bit about Obesos.
Obesos is a pretty interesting horse to me because he didn't make his stakes debut until the Risen Star Stakes, where he was a fast-closing 4th behind Manzaloon, Midnight Bourbon, we'll get to a little bit later on. But Obesos is going to be a deep closer in this field. And in the Louisiana Derby, I thought it was a particularly good race for him in particular because the winner of that race, Hot Rod Charlie, who we'll get to in a little bit, and the 2nd-place finisher, Midnight Bourbon, were 1-2 all the way around the track. And it was pretty much a merry-go-round race, except for Obesos. He was fast closing and just missed Midnight Bourbon by a head to get 2nd. So I think if Obesos gets a good pace in front of him, I certainly think he'll be coming late. Gregory Foley, he had a Derby runner last year with Major Feds, but so he's experienced in this field. He has some good workouts coming in. He's been pretty popular on social media as well, coming into the field. So would be a very popular win for the connections if they were able to get the win. He would have to get a good pace in front of him, and I consider this to be another long shot to consider putting in your exotics for Obesos.
Yeah, I would consider Obesos as well. The 7 horse is Manzaloon, who is 15-1, trained by Brad Cox. Tell us about Manzaloon.
This horse is also pretty quirky to me because the first 4 starts of his career, he ran really well. He won both of his races at 2, including a race at Churchill Downs on November 28th. The Lecomte Stakes, I mean, he was a little bit more green, a little bit immature during that race. So after finishing 3rd in the Risen Star, trainer Brad Cox decided to put blinkers on this colt, and he went on to win that race very impressively over Midnight Bourbon and Obezos. And it looked like he was going to be a heavy favorite for the Louisiana Derby, and he was extremely disappointing in that race. Trainer Brad Cox and his jockey Laurent Giroux were very puzzled as to what happened, but whatever happened that day, they seemed to put it behind him because since then he has worked out extremely well at Churchill Downs. He's looked really good in the mornings, been getting rave reviews from the clockers. So I honestly would put that Louisiana Derby aside. He's 15 to 1 on the morning line, but I could certainly see him right around there, maybe a little bit higher. And I would not be surprised at all if we see a bounce back spot for him in the Kentucky Derby. I think he'll get a good trip, sit just off the pace, and certainly he has the pedigree to get the 1.25 mile distance. It's just a matter if he has the class to get it done.
Yeah, and another one that I think has a nice chance is a Medina Spirit, 15 to 1. That's the 8 horse, trained by the best in the business, Bob Baffert. Tell us about Medina Spirit.
Well, Medina Spirit in 5 career starts has done very little wrong. He has 5 starts. He has 2 wins in 3 seconds, so he's never been worse than second in his career. For Bob Baffert, he's known for a guy who trains very expensive horses, but this course, the horse racing insurance costs $35,000, which for Bob Baffert isn't a whole lot. But this horse, coming into the Derby, he was a distant second behind Rock Your World in the Santa Anita Derby. And I think what's interesting about him is that he's not a horse that likes to get passed by other horses. He's very game. But he also, when he's off the pace, he doesn't like to pass horses either. So he's very one-dimensional. I think he's a need-to-lead type of horse. So just like a race back on January 30th, he won the Robert B. Lewis Stakes at Santa Anita, in which he went wire to wire and beat Hot Rod Charlie in that field. And then in the San Felipe, he was that off the pace and was a well second behind another Baffert runner named Life is Good, who was probably going to be the Kentucky Derby favorite, but unfortunately got hurt before the Santa Anita Derby, and will be back later in the summer. And then in the Santa Anita Derby, just like in the San Felipe, he sat off the pace and was a well-beaten second behind Rock Your World. So, honestly, with the way the pace is setting up, it would not surprise me at all if Bob Baffert decides to send this horse out to the lead. And if he can get to the lead and set some easy fractions or possibly comfortable fractions for him, he honestly could steal this race on the front end. 15 to 1 on the morning line is not a bad price at all, especially considering who's training this horse. And basically, this is the same jockey-trainer combination that won the Kentucky Derby last year with Authentic. So, very intriguing horse that Medina Spirit is going into Saturday.
Absolutely. And another intriguing horse, in my opinion, is the horse in the 9-hole, Hot Rod Charlie, 8 to 1, trained by Doug O'Neill. Tell us about Hot Rod Charlie.
Yeah, Hot Rod Charlie is a horse who has been getting much better as the more he races. It took him 4 tries to break the maiden. He broke it on October 2nd of last year. After that win, trainer Doug O'Neill sent him to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he finished second behind Essential Quality at 94 to 1 in that field. And a lot of people thought, it was just a good run, it was a fluke. But his 2 starts this year, he's shown that it's no fluke. He was a close third behind Medina Spirit in the Robert B. Lewis. And then he went on to a very impressive win in the Louisiana Derby. And he has looked really, really good in the mornings. Doug O'Neill is his trainer, has won a couple Kentucky Derbies in the past. His jockey, Flavian Pratt, was aboard Country House in that controversial 2019 running. So these two, he has connections that know how to win this field Derby. He's coming in really good form. And he's another one that could be on the lead or close to the pace. And from his post, he's going to get a good trip from the 9 post. If he can work out a decent trip with Flavian Pratt, just down off the lead, I think he'll be there turning for home.
Yeah, and the 10 horse is somebody that, or a horse that really intrigues me too. Midnight Bourbon at 20-1, trained by Steven Asselman. Tell us a little bit about Midnight Bourbon.
Midnight Bourbon is another one who also intrigues me too. 20-1 on the morning line, which I think is a very good price. And looking at the horses he faced in the past, he's faced Hot Rod Charlie. He's faced He's faced Central Quality in the past as well. Manzaloon. His win in the Lecomte Stakes, the Grade 3 on January 16th. He won that race going wire to wire. The Louisiana Derby, he was just off the pace and couldn't pass the Hot Rod Charlie. So this could be another horse that's going to be right on the lead or just off of it. And it would not surprise me if, turning for home, he could be in front. So, and could be the one to catch. 20-1 is a nice price on Midnight Bourbon, and certainly could be worth playing in your exotics.
Yes, I agree with you there. Dynamicone could be another one that people will throw in exotic parlays. He's in the 11 hole and also is 20-1, trained by Todd Pletcher. Tell us about Dynamicone.
Dynamicone, this is the third for trainer Todd Pletcher, 3 of the 4. And as for this one, I love his pedigree. He's a colt by Union Rags who won the Belmont Stakes back in 2012. Out of a Smart Strike mare, horses by Smart Strike can definitely get the 1.25 mile distance. As for Dynamicone, it took him a little while to get going. He didn't break his maiden until his 4th try on March 7th at Aqueduct. Now, he was running races in Florida, and he didn't particularly run too well. I think he was much better at the Aqueduct track more than anything. And when he was running in the Wood Memorial, he had the lead turning for home, and it looked like he was going to win until the other Todd Pletcher horse, Bourbon, chased him down and caught him right on the wire. So he's come out of that race well. He's been training really, really good coming into this field. He's the one that probably will be sitting mid-pack in the middle of this in the race. He's probably going to get a nice pace setup. Jose Ortiz will be aboard, so he's certainly one of the best riders in the country. That's definitely going to be a plus for him. He's going to be one that's going to be charging, turning for home. And at 20-1, definitely worth looking to in the exotics.
Absolutely. Helium is 50-1. That's the horse in the 12 pole, trained by Mark Cassie. Tell us about Helium.
Helium is, I don't know how exactly to play this one because he's a bit of a confusing one for me because he has 2 starts up in Canada, both on Polytrack. He won those races impressively. After October 18th, he was not seen again for almost 5 months in the Tampa Bay Derby. And he won, and in the Tampa Bay Derby, he looked like he was going to get passed by Hit and Stash, we'll get to in a little bit, but then repelled him, turned him away, and actually drew away again. While it was a very impressive victory, he has not run since. So going into the Kentucky Derby, he's only run once in almost 7 months. So I don't know. This is a strategy that Mark Cassie and the connections have come up with. They think he's a better horse when he runs fresh. So, I mean, if the connections feel it's best for him, then so be it. But I like to see a horse that probably has run a couple more times, especially going like maybe 4 or 5 weeks out. He hasn't run in almost 2 months, so that's a bit of a problem for me. Also, the fact that he's not very experienced over the Churchill Downs track. I really haven't liked his workout, so 50-1 I would think is about the right price. I would be very, very surprised if he would get into the top 4.
Yeah, same here. You alluded to this horse while talking about Helium, and that is Hidden Stash, who's in the 13th spot, also 50-1, trained by Victoria Oliver. Tell us about Hidden Stash.
Hidden Stash, one of the most experienced runners in the race. This will be his 8th start coming up. As you said, trained by Victoria Oliver. She's seeking to become the first woman trainer to win the Kentucky Derby in its history. So a bit of history on the line there. This is a horse who has, as a 2-year-old, was running really well. He broke his bean in his 3rd try at Keeneland, won an allowance race on November 28th at Churchill Downs. His 3 starts this year have been pretty good. To Sam Davis, he came from off the pace to finish 3rd. In the Tampa Bay Derby, it looked like he was going to win turning for home, but then was repelled by Helium. His Bluegrass Stakes I'm willing to throw out because it was a speed favoring track that day in favor of horses like Highly Motivated and Central Quality, who we'll get to in a little bit. He was off. He was off the pace by a long time for a while. The track playing that day was not very kind to closers, so I'm willing to toss that Bluegrass Stakes out. But since then, he's come out of the race really well. He's been training great. Rafael Bejarano, a veteran Kentucky Derby jockey, will be aboard him. So I don't think he'll win, but 50 to 1. I don't know if necessarily that will be around the price he'll be at, but certainly a horse that will be coming on late and maybe, just maybe, could be in the exotics.
Absolutely. 14 is Essential Quality, the 2-1 favorite at the moment, trained by Brad Cox. Tell us a little bit about the favorite horse, Essential Quality.
Well, Essential Quality is a deserving favorite. He has done just about little wrong since his 2-year-old debut. 5 for 5, has wins in the Breeders' Futurity, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He's a 2-year-old champion. He made his debut in the Southwest States over a sloppy racetrack and passed that test with flying colors. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he faced some adversity for the first time when he led a lone speed horse in Highly Motivated, who just basically got away with very slow fractions. It looked like Highly Motivated was pulling away, but then Essential Quality just reeled him in slowly, and he got him just before the wire. I thought it was a really impressive race, and probably maybe his most impressive race to date. So he's certainly coming into the Derby in really good fashion right now. Luis Saez will be aboard. He's probably one of the best jockeys in the country right now. Trainer Brad Cox, I think, has a great chance of getting his first Kentucky Derby win in here. The post 14 is a good post for him. He should be in about mid-pack, sitting behind horses, behind a good pace. And honestly, if he runs just about the same race he ran in the Bluegrass, he'll definitely be a win contender for sure.
Absolutely. And then another horse that is going to be in play is Rock Your World, 5-1 in the 15 hole, trained by John Sadler. Tell us about Rock Your World.
Rock Your World is a very, very impressive racehorse. Coming into this race, he won the Santa Anita Derby going wire to wire. But before that, his first 2 races, the main special weight win on New Year's Day of this year and the Pasadena Stakes, were both on grass, on turf. So he made the switch from turf to dirt. There were some question marks as to whether he would handle the dirt. Some were saying he wasn't really training well over it. But he passed that test with flying colors when he won the Santa Anita Derby, wire to wire. Very impressive fashion. But I think what impressed me most about that Santa Anita Derby was his actions after the race. Usually, sometimes when you're looking at horses after the race, like their body language, like are they tired? What's their gallop out like? The way he galloped out, he just kept on going. Like they could go around again and they still would not pass him. So, and he's come out of that race really, really well, extremely fit. He posted a 5 furlong workout at Santa Anita last weekend that was honestly, in my opinion, was pretty breathtaking, showing a lot of energy. It looks like he was absolutely ready to go for this coming Saturday. Joel Rosario, who maybe has the jockey maybe the most momentum right now, will be aboard him just like he was his first 2 starts. Alberto Rispoli, who's riding Brooklyn Strong, was aboard him in the Santa Anita Derby, but the connections made the change back to Joel Rosario for this Kentucky Derby. He's definitely going to be a player for sure. He could be on the lead. He could just sit just off the lead, but I definitely think he'll be around at the end.
Yep, I agree with you. I think Rock Your World will hang around. 16, King Fury, 20-1. A colt trained by Kenneth McPeak. Tell us about King Fury. By the way, his odds are 20-1.
King Fury, I love this horse, King Fury. He was I watched him break his maiden on Kentucky Derby week back on September 3rd of last year, and he was a very impressive maiden winner. His race in the Breeders' Futurity was pretty puzzling. I mean, I don't know, maybe he didn't like the Keeneland track that day. Pretty speed favorite behind Essential Quality. He won the Street Scent Stakes in a driving finish very impressively. So he has 2 victories over the Churchill Downs surface. So that's very good news on his front. And, Kenny McPeak has stated that it's probably one of the most impressive colts that he's had in training. And he's been in training for over 25 years. So pretty high praise by Kenny McPeak. Even though he also says he regrets running him a bit too much as a 2-year-old. he did not make his 3-year-old debut until April 10th of this year, when over a sloppy racetrack, he won the Stone Street Lexington Stakes, in which he was far behind a fast pace early and just was slowly but steadily moving up along the inside down the backstretch, made a power move around the turn, and just drew away really impressively. It was a very impressive win in the Lexington. He had to get a couple of defections to get in, and he ultimately did get in. His workout at Churchill on April 24th was extremely impressive. Impressed a lot of clockers, a lot of horsemen down at the track. So he's coming into this race really, really good, and he's going to need another fast pace again. I think he can get it. The question is, how far is it going to be too far back? But I think definitely this horse will also be coming late at the end. The question is, does he have enough time to get there?
I totally agree with you there. Highly motivated, 10-1 in the 17 spot, trained by Chad Brown. Tell us about Highly Motivated. This is a horse that's intriguing to me.
He's very intriguing to me too. Now he's been a horse that's been coming along slowly. The connection started actually starting him off sprinting, and slowly, gradually worked his way up the distances. He won the Nyquist Stakes at Keeneland as a 2-year-old. That race was going 6.5 furlongs, and then after that, we didn't see him again until March 6th, where he was a fast closing third in the Gotham Stake. Now that was his first race in 4 months. Trainer Chad Brown stated that he was basically using that race as a building block for what was next to come, and that next race was the Bluegrass. And even though he's not a horse really known for his on the lead speed, he went to the front and nearly stole the race wire to wire over Essential Quality in a driving finish. Very, very game that day. He ultimately finished second, being the head behind Essential Quality. He came out of that race really, really good. Had a nice workout over the Churchill Down surface on April 24th, so he's ready to rock and roll. I have a little bit of question marks with regards to if he can get the 1.25 miles. He kind of reminds me of another Chad Brown training horse named Practical Joke. Practical Joke actually ran in the Kentucky Derby in 2017, but he was more known for being a horse, while very talented, was pretty much best around like a one turn mile. But his races around 2 turns were impressive, even though he didn't win any. He had a couple second place finishes, a couple third place finishes. I don't know if Highly Motivated is going down that same path. I think he does have a very good chance of winning the Kentucky Derby, but he's going to have to be probably on the pace or get some help in order to get there.
Alrighty, next up is Superstock, 30-1 in the 18-hole, trained by Steven Osmussen. He has another horse in this field as well, as we talked about earlier. Tell us about Superstock.
Superstock is pretty interesting horse, to say the least. He won his first race down in Lone Star Park in Texas, in the Texas Thoroughbred Futurity, for trainer Steve Asmussen. He's actually had a couple of impressive races as well. He was third behind Essential Quality in the Breeders' Futurity. He was second behind King Fury in the Street Sense Stakes at Churchill Downs. After that, he wasn't seen again for a few months. And then in his first race in 5 months, he was fourth in the Rebel Stakes, even though he didn't get the best of trips that day. The Arkansas Derby, which is his second start off the layoff, a much, much better race. He closed in, a pretty slow pace behind the 2 speed horses, and he drew away, won that race pretty impressively. So, in a 12-1 upset. Steve Asmussen, of course, is the trainer of this horse, and I think he's definitely going to need a fast pace this time. He's the deep closer. Ricardo Santana Jr., which is basically Steve Asmussen's go-to rider in the Midwest. So I think Superstock, I don't know necessarily how big his chances are to win. He's 30-1 on the morning line. I like the fact that he's coming into this race with some momentum, but he's going to have to get a really swift pace, a good trip, and definitely some help in order to get the win here.
All right, next up is 19, Soup and Sandwich, 30-1, trained by Mark Cassie. Tell us about Soup and Sandwich.
Well, first off, I love the name. It's a great name, Soup and Sandwich. I mean, who doesn't love Soup and Sandwich?
Love the name.
But this is a pretty nice horse, actually. He made his debut on January 28th. He won a main special weight very impressively at Gulfstream Park around 1 turn. The connection shipped to Tampa Bay Downs for his 2-turn debut. He won that race. Even though it was a small field, he won the race impressively. And then they sent him to the deep waters in the Florida Derby. They're like, okay, let's see what he's got. Let's see if he can match up with the tougher competition. And in his stakes debut, he held his own. He was among the pace setters, and he was the only one to stick around at the end. He finished second, a length and a quarter behind No Agenda, and he was able to qualify with 40 points against the Kentucky Derby. And since then, he's been working very well over the Churchill Downs track. He's has a striking presence in the paddock, so I don't know exactly if he can get that same trip. He'll probably be one of the mid-pack stalkers behind the front pace setters. He's going to have to work, and considering he's coming from post-19. Post-19 has only won once in the history of Kentucky Derby, even though it was most recently without having another in 2012. But history really isn't exactly on his side, and I think maybe too much too soon for him.
And last but not least, we have Bourbon at 30-1 in the 20 hole. Another horse trained by Todd Pletcher. Tell us about Bourbon.
Bourbon, this is the horse who, coming into the Derby, he was in the Wood Memorial. He was behind a pretty slow pace, and to this day, I still don't know how he won this race. He came from dead last, was closing like a freight train, and he beat his stablemate Dynamicone, and he won the Wood Memorial at odds of 72-1. So it was a shocking upset that set basically shockwaves across the racing industry. And Bourbon, for his credit, I mean, he did win the race to qualify for the Derby. But considering he's from starting pole position 20, he's a deep closer. His prior wins before that were a main claiming race at Aqueduct and a starter optional claiming race. So basically, connections didn't really exactly think it very highly of him. But the Wood Memorial set was a shocking victory, so he was able to qualify for the Derby. Jockey Kendrick Carmouche, this would be his very first Kentucky Derby mount, so that's a feel-good story for him. The odds are definitely stacked up against Bourbon, though, on Saturday.
Yeah, alrighty. So, as we do on these podcasts each and every time, we pick the winners, the places, and the shows. We'll start with our winners. I'll have you go first. Who's your winner for this year's Kentucky Derby?
I kind of wrestled this with a little bit. I thought because the pace horses pretty much have won the Kentucky Derby a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. So looking at this, I went with the here we go. I went with the number 15 horse, Rock Your World. His San Diego Derby win was extremely impressive to me. I love the way he galloped out. I love the way he's been training coming into this race. His works in the morning, his gallops. He just looks like a horse that's primed and ready to go for the first Saturday in May. I think he can work out a great trip on the 15 post. Joel Rosario knows him very well. And so Rock Your World is my winner on Saturday.
I'm going to go with the favorite, Essential Quality. I just like that he's unbeaten. I like the trainer. I'm just going with my gut. I'm going to go with Essential Quality. What about your place pick?
My place pick, I'm going to go with the 10, Midnight Bourbon. I think he's coming into this race really in good form. I think the 10 furlongs will be no problem for him. I think he'll definitely be around at the end. Steve Atkinson knows how to get a horse ready for the Kentucky Derby. So Midnight Bourbon will be my second place horse.
My second place horse, I'm going to go with Medina Spirit. I really am a fan of this horse. Bob Baffert, obviously. You know how I feel about Bob Baffert. I think his horse is always...
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong with Bob Baffert. I'm going to go with Medina Spirit in the place hole. What about in third? Who do you like for the show?
My show is Essential Quality, number 14. He's the favorite, the morning line favorite, 2-1. I think he will be the post-time favorite by the time the race goes off. So I think ultimately, yes, he's 5 for 5. I love the way he's trained. It's going to be a question of if he can work out a trip from the 14 post. So I have him finishing third, Essential Quality.
I'm going to go with Hot Rod Charlie for third, 8-1. I just like this horse a lot. He's won some races lately. He has a second and a third. So I'm going to go with Hot Rod Charlie, the 9 horse. Is there any horses you like in the undercard for Saturday?
The undercard is a really interesting undercard. In the Old Forester Turf Classic, there's a horse by the name of Colonel Liam who won the Pegasus World Cup Turf. Very impressive horse. Ever since switching to the turf, has only lost once. Trainer Todd Pletcher, Ira Ortiz Jr., he's a very impressive 4-year-old colt. I think has a great chance of winning. Also, don't leave out the horse like Smooth Like Straight from the same race for trainer Mike McCarthy, shipping in from California. So the Turf Classic, of horses like Colonel Liam and Smooth Like Straight will be very good. Also, you have in the Pat Day Mile, you have Prevalence for trainer Brendan Walsh, who was a very highly regarded 3-year-old on the Derby Trail. Didn't work out in the Wood Memorial, but he goes back to a 1-turn mile. I think that will work out well for him, as well as the 3-horse Jackie's Warrior for Steve Asmussen and Joel Rosario. Jackie's Warrior was actually 4th behind Essential Quality in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but the connections decided to send him back down to 1 mile, which I think is what he wants to do. So keep an eye on those 2 horses. And finally, in the Derby City Distaff, number 4 horse Gamine for trainer Bob Baffert. Very impressive mare, a filly. Has done very little wrong in her career. So fast, so quick. She'll probably be a very heavy favorite on that day, in that race.
I'm sure, because it's a Bob Baffert horse. Normally the Baffert horses are favored pretty big in some of those races. Before we go, let's talk a little NFL draft with the locals. Obviously the Jets, we'll start with them. They have the number 2 pick. Zach Wilson seems like the consensus guy for them at number 2 overall. What about for their second first round, their 23? Where do you think they should be aiming there? Do you think they should go defense, or you think, let's assume it's Zach Wilson at 2, do you think that they should go offense?
It's a bit of a tough call because I think they need help on both sides of the ball either way. I mean, I've seen mock drafts where they have defense and offense. I would be interested to see if they draft a guy like maybe Travis Etienne as a running back to help bolster the backfield, or maybe even a Najee Harris if they want to go that route. They certainly need help at the cornerback slot, or maybe even another offensive lineman, maybe like a Landon Dickerson from Alabama, because it could certainly be in play for the Jets. But they have a lot of holes on that team, to say the least. So they better, with that second first-round pick, they need to definitely bolster up, possibly even some offensive help. So a guy like Travis Etienne would certainly help. Offensive lineman like Landon Dickerson could also help too.
Yeah, I really, really like the ETN call, but I think that could very well happen in the second round, and Dickerson could be potentially in the first. Let's go to our favorite team, the New York Football Giants. Mock drafts are going everywhere, other than quarterback and running back, obviously, because we know Jones and Barkley are going to be there. Wide receiver, offensive tackle, I've seen pass rush, I've seen corner. If you had a choice, who would you take if you were the Giants?
I mean, for me, it's an extremely tough call because there's definitely positions where the Giants need to fill, but ultimately, if say a Rashawn Slater is there at a number 11, I would certainly consider taking him. But if a guy like Devontae Smith, wide receiver from Alabama, if he happened to fall to 11, it's going to be really hard to pass on him. Because at the end of the day, if you can give Daniel Jones another weapon, that certainly would be a good help for him. A guy like Jalen Waddle also could be there at 11 as well. So I think you have to go, and this is my opinion, I think you have to go on the offensive side. I mean, because at the end of the day, the most important position is the quarterback. Whether it's an offensive lineman, I'd be okay with it. If it's like I said, if it's a Rashawn Slater, if he's there, I'd be happy with it. If they somehow get Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle to fall for them, I wouldn't have a problem with that too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it should be offensive line, although Devontae Smith is who I want as the Giants fan in me. You know how I feel about the offensive firepower.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about that as a Giants fan. All right, so it was a pleasure to have you on today, as always, Jeff. And we'll certainly have you on before the Preakness.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madison. Great to talk to you again.
Of course. Have a good night.